Exactly 24 years ago, on the day of this video's release, my Cub Scout leader told me that my frostbite was no big deal and did not require urgent treatment. Despite causing me to lose several fingers and develop a crippling addiction to wearing mittens at all times of the year, I wouldn't consider this man to be a particularly bad leader. Having played all of the Civilization games, I have now seen far worse. Yes, the balance in this franchise is not known for being very good, and the leaders are no exception. Which is kind of messed up. Saying an entire nation or tribe of people is bottom tier? What did they mean by this? Anyway, to commemorate this momentous anniversary, I've prepared a top 6 list of the worst leaders in the Civilization franchise. Differences between civilizations that have an impact on gameplay were really introduced in Civilization 3, so we can pretty easily eliminate the first 2 games from contention. For number 6, we're going to start with Civilization 6. Now, there's no good way to do this. Most online tier lists I've found list a quarter of the civs as game-breaking and another 50% as A tier or above. So either there's some sort of post-COVID levels of grade inflation going on, or the developers have gotten better at making it so that each civ fulfills some sort of unique power fantasy. Probably both. I think it's both. I can't think of anything universally considered bad in this game. The worst would probably be something really niche that depends too much on your map setup to be good. But that's not what I'm going to be talking about. Because, beyond all else, Civilization 6 is fundamentally just a really easy game. All of the leaders are solid, but they don't need to be. You could easily win on deity without any bonuses at all. The worst leader, then, is the one that makes the game the most obtuse, and relies on knowledge of the most obscure mechanics to be effective. That would be Mvemba a Nzinga. Mr. Nzinga here was actually the first leader that I ever played when I sat down with Civ 6, and his unique cocktail of bonuses are the perfect fit for making you want to put down the game and go join a monastery somewhere. Sadly, it will need to be someone else's monastery, because Congo's ability means that they can't build holy sites. I thought that this would make the game easier, but the game knowledge required to decode what the heck is going on here is absurd. Their unique unit has a whole lot of changes to end up not being very good. Their unique district gives housing, the benefits of which are notorious for not being well explained through the UI. You're going to be drowning in apostles, but with no religion, you are not allowed to evangelize any beliefs. Especially on lower difficulties, you'll have no clue what to do with all these great people. Remember that in Civ 6, the only thing that they can do is make great works, and you'll need a ton of slots for that. You get a bonus on relics, which there is no reliable way to produce. You get a bonus on sculptures, but whether or not that's what your great artist gives you is all RNG. You might think, oh, I'll just buy all of the artists when they come up using faith. But Congo is a lot like George Michael in 1990. Generating faith is just something that you have no desire to do. Again, you have no faith, you can't buy missionaries. You cannot found a religion, so you have to hope that the AI picks up the useful beliefs. And you are completely reliant on the AI to get their religion into your land, which on lower difficulties, they might just not do. Again, a very powerful leader, but he has 12 different special powers, and each one is specifically constructed to make you tilt your head, stare at your monitor, and say, "What?" But you cannot say what, because that would require the ability to build a holy site. The next leader on our list comes from Civilization 3. Now, in Civ 3, factions only had unique units and 2 traits. Aside from agricultural being too strong, all of the traits are reasonably good. Seafaring and Expansionist are the weaker traits of the bunch, but they're decent, they're just more dependent on what kind of map you're playing. Portugal has both of these traits, and they have a kind of reverse synergy between the two, but that guarantees a baseline level of usefulness regardless of the map. They have a weak unique unit, but they are a perfectly playable civ, so I can't put Henry the Navigator here. There is one more factor though. In Civ 3, you trigger a Golden Age by winning combat with your unique unit or building wonders that correspond with your traits. A Golden Age gives +1 shield and commerce to most tiles in your whole empire for 20 turns. This is an incredibly powerful bonus. You don't want to trigger it too early, but definitely don't want to not have it at all, so when assessing the leaders, there's an extra layer of how useful their Golden Ages tend to be. A few leaders are made worse because of this factor, but only one leader consistently does not have access to their golden age at all. It's Abraham Lincoln. Honest Abe over here has the F-15 as his unique unit, which was a very common piece of military equipment when he was growing up in the late 19th century. This is buildable at the start of the modern age with the rocketry tech. For comparison, the wonder that lets you win the game is available at the same tech level. Your golden age will begin about half an era after the point where it's basically locked in, whether the game is won or lost. It's also just not a very good unit. If you don't want a golden age that starts after the game has already ended, you could also trigger a golden age by using wonders that match your traits. Many civs need only one wonder, America needs two. And because of the traits, the specific wonder that you need can be hard to get, and if you miss them, you won't have a second chance. Like if you spawn far inland, you might have 90 turns to thrust your nation towards the coast and build either the Colossus or the Great Lighthouse, while simultaneously building the pyramids. Talk about American exceptionalism. I think there's a bit of a double standard here, because all India has to do to trigger Golden Age is win a battle with the most overpowered unit in the game. On high difficulties, with most starts, rushing 2 wonders is just not possible. America is the only civ that is consistently not able to get a useful Golden Age, making Lincoln, without a doubt, the worst leader in Civilization 3. The next pick on our list will be from Civilization 4. Protective is commonly regarded as the weakest of all the traits. You might be expecting me to say Charlemagne as the worst leader. He has a, frankly, ridiculous assortment of weak powers, which somehow coalesce into a mostly coherent game plan. He can spam cities, fight scrappy defensive wars, and turn into a juggernaut. Even his weak starting techs kind of help with that plan. No, the worst leader in Civilization 4 is Tokugawa. While the powers that he has are stronger individually, they have ridiculous anti-synergy. The cornerstone of this is his trait pair, aggressive and protective. You have no economic boosts, aside from your solid starting techs. You need to conquer, but for the first half of the game, your traits boost 2 different classes of units. It really feels like you're playing a one-trait civ, and your unique building is AWOL for the relevant portions of the game. Samurai are a good unique unit. They replace macemen, which aren't a game-breaking timing push, but they can get the job done. They get a bonus promotion from the aggressive trait, and the samurai's buff is a strict upgrade over the macemen in all situations, but the buff is having 2 first strikes. For those unaware, the mathematics related to the effects of first strikes and how they translate to raw combat stats are notoriously convoluted, but basically, first strikes are good when you are much stronger and you don't want to take any damage from combat, or when you're much weaker and want to guarantee a minimum amount of damage on the opposing unit. As Tokugawa, that first option is impossible, and the second is untenable. What all of this means is that Tokugawa cannot play from behind. You are a one-trick pony who cannot keep up with the AI on high difficulties. Bad land? It's over. No iron? You're done. Boxed in next to a protective civ with a hill city? Better petition yourself for a legal name change to Tom Cruise, because you're going to be the last samurai. This is a rough faction to play as. Number 3 on our list is a 3-way tie between the Romans, the Celts, and the Russians in Civilization 2. I guess a 6-way tie if you count both the male and female leaders of these factions. Now, this might seem like absolute nonsense. I said at the start they didn't add any differentiation between civs as a game feature until Civilization 3. But in case you need reminding, the early games in the series were programmed using spaghetti. While the experience for the human player was intended to be the same, the AI do have different personalities in both Civ 1 and 2. Furthermore, the different civs are sorted by this color system. So, if you don't want to play against the Mongols in Civ 2, who have probably the strongest programmed behavior, you can choose to play as another purple faction. But there's a bigger factor at play. Civ 2 uses a system of index civs. If you are more powerful, techs are more expensive. If you are weaker, techs are cheaper for you. But this is not relative to the strongest civ on the map, or the average civ. Instead, it's relative to your index civ, and that is determined by your color. The extremes here would be purple civs, who measure up against the supreme powered enemies. If you're purple and also the strongest civ on the map, you are your own key civ, and don't get any penalty for being ahead. The other extreme would be white civs, who measure up against civs with a pathetic power level. If you're white and the weakest civ on the map, you are your own key civ, and despite having very poor tech, you do not get any bonuses. The end result here is that the leaders of the white civs are significantly worse than the leaders of all of the other civs in the game. There's no upside here. I could theoretically imagine a map where these other leaders are at peak performance, but there is no advantage to playing as these leaders in Civilization 2. Number 2 on our list comes from Civilization 5, and that shouldn't be a surprise. This was the first game to break away from the trait system, which really puts a baseline as to how bad a faction can be. Civ 5 introduced unique thematic abilities, removing this baseline. Suddenly, factions could be anything. They could even have negative abilities. These had been flirted with a bit in past games, like with some of the unique units, but Enrico Dandolo, the Doge of Venice, takes it to the next level. He cannot build any settlers. I don't know how they thought this was acceptable. The man just can't build new cities. This is so bad. It should be noted that Civ 5 had some built-in mechanics punishing expansion, but this is at an extreme. I don't know of any competitive strategy where you just stay on one city. Typically, high-level players that are growing tall with tradition will build 4 or 5 cities. You can make a puppet state, but you can never annex it. You didn't pick the location, and you can't pick what it's going to build. These are not crippling downsides, but they are substantial, and the bonuses that you get don't come close to making up for it. The Great Gallius has decent stats, but nothing upgrades into it, and it can't go on ocean tiles, so your choices for targets are quite limited. You get double trade routes, which is nice, but you don't have good options for internal trade, and the Merchant of Venice is just whatever. This is very clearly a downgrade. The total package leaves you worse off. I can't put it at the bottom of the list, though, because at the very least it is fun and flavorful. No, the worst leader in the series has to make you miserable for even attempting to play them. It's also from Civ 5, it's the Iroquois. This Civ is all about forests. The game just doesn't have enough forests. Even in land-heavy maps like the one I generated here, I didn't chop anything, and you can see that there's just not enough of them for this effect to matter. Their unique unit gives a conditional forest terrain buff to the swordsman, a garbage unit that nobody builds, but if you did, the enemy might just have no forests, or they might have chopped all their forests, and then you get no buff at all. Same thing with the Longhouse, you only get bonus shields for each forest tile that you have. Chopping forests is typically something that you want to do early for tempo. Later on, if you haven't cleared them, you can't build any other tile improvements. So the Longhouse locks you into this suboptimal build, and then takes away the 10% production that the workshop typically gives. It's case by case, but despite being a little bit cheaper, this is still often a clear downgrade relative to the regular workshop. The last piece of the puzzle is the road bonus. Even with the Iroquois starting bias, notice that none of our cities are connected by forests. You need to fill in the gaps with roads. But it isn't sufficient just to have the two be interchangeable. When we switch from forest to road here, notice that we don't get the movement bonus. We should be able to travel 4 tiles, but we can only travel 3. Mobility from roads is really important. Despite costing 1 gold per turn, in Civ 5, good players use road spaghetti to grant movement to every tile. So even with the Iroquois boost, you're still going to need roads on most of your tiles to ensure full movement throughout your empire. They were really trying here. They thought they were giving Hiawatha a decked-out kit, and in truth, it does very marginally more than nothing. This was not DLC. Unlike Venice, they weren't released with the expansion pack. They just made a useless Civ, and never got around to fixing it. Hiawatha from Civ 5 is the worst leader in the Civilization franchise. Alright, if you like it when I talk trash about games that you've never played, check out this tier list of all the unique units in Civ 3. There's more F-15 slander in there. Take care, everybody. See you next time.